Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Aradhna, and in today's video I'm going to continue the William J. Long series because a lot of you asked me on Instagram as well as in the comments of my videos that I should continue that series, and I think it has been a long time since I posted the last video, and I have made 8 videos on William J. Long so far on the history of English literature, and I'm continuing this today, and the link of the playlist will be in the description and also in a pinned comment. So yeah, make sure you watch those 8 parts before you watch this, because the thing is that you won't be able to understand what I'm saying in this video if you have not watched those videos before. But before that, if you want to connect with me on a daily basis, then you can connect with me on Instagram. Link will be in the description and also in a pinned comment. So now let's get into today's video. Okay, so in the last video we talked about the origin of drama in the Elizabethan age and the 3 types of drama, that is religious, moral and artistic, kind of progressed and how it progressed, and we also discussed some examples of those dramas as well. So continuing from there, today we are going to discuss the classical influences on drama and how it progressed to the time of Shakespeare. Okay, so one of the most important thing that we need to understand as literature students is that there is nothing new, okay, as such, because whenever we read a work, it is mostly a derivative work of some other work, okay, which has been written before that work. Okay, for example, even if you take Shakespeare, most of his works are derivative of other works, which seem kind of new because of the kind of way he has written all those things, and the way he has introduced the ambiguity in his works, and the kind of very small things that he has put up in them. Okay, so none of them are truly different or like truly inventive in any way. Okay, so the same goes for classical influence as well. Seneca, the most important and the favoritist of writer of ancient times, his works influenced a lot of writers during the Elizabethan times, mostly the university wits, and even Shakespeare, like most of his works are derivative of Seneca's works. Now these classic works strictly followed the unity of time, place and action, and because Seneca's works were not translated in English before 1559, there were a very less number of people who were able to read his works. So the thing is that only the highly educated people were able to read these ancient classic works and can write based on the kind of structure they provided. And the most important of these writers who used these classical works were the university wits. Now, who were these university wits and why are they so important? These university wits were people who were highly educated from universities like Cambridge and Oxford, and the thing is that they kind of regarded themselves, and people also regarded them as really, really good writers. And these 7 university wits were Christopher Marlowe, Robert Greene, Thomas Nash, John Lyell, Thomas Lodge, George Peele and Thomas Kidd. Now, among these 7 university wits, Christopher Marlowe, Robert Greene and Thomas Nash were educated in Cambridge and rest were educated at Oxford. Another thing that aided kind of the development of drama very rapidly in the Elizabethan times was the opening of the theatre in 1576 by James Burbage in Finsbury Field, north of London. Now James Burbage is kind of a very important name when it comes to drama and theatre, so yeah, I think you should prepare a short note kind of thing for him as well. And when we talk about theatre in the Elizabethan times, it's not like the theatre that we have today, I mean, obviously. And as far as the stage is concerned, a curtain was used at that point too, but there were no stage decorations as such, okay, and the parts of women were also played by male actors. Okay, now all of these university wits are kind of the predecessors of Shakespeare, but the most important and the one that has been discussed in William J. Long is Christopher Marlowe, because he is the most important writer, dramatist that we have before Shakespeare. So we are going to talk about him. And Christopher Marlowe, as we have discussed, was educated at Cambridge, and he was kind of a highly educated person, and at 23 he wrote Tamburlaine. Tamburlaine is a story on Timur the Mongol, and he kind of got his fame, like the first flame of his fame after publishing Tamburlaine, the first part. And there are not a lot of things known about his personal life, except that his death was kind of a big controversy because he kind of got in a fight at a restaurant or a bar, and he was stabbed by a fellow writer, and yeah, he died then and there. So that's that, and there are a lot of other theories regarding his death. And the movie that I recommended all of you to watch, Shakespeare in Love, in the last video I think of William J. Long, kind of also shows that he kind of ends up dead during a fight in a bar. Okay, so I think that is the largely accepted story about his death. And on his tombstone we have this line from Dr. Faustus written, which goes like, "Cut is the branch that might have grown full straight and buried in Apollo's laurel bough, that sometimes grew within this learned man." This is one of the most famous lines of Christopher Marlowe from Dr. Faustus. If you have read Dr. Faustus, you might know there are a lot of amazing lines in that work. I think Dr. Faustus is the most important play that all of you should read, and if you cannot read, you can just watch it here on YouTube as well. It's there are a lot of great performances. So the dramas of Christopher Marlowe are often called as Marlowesque. Marlowesque means these are mostly one-man type of tragedy. Okay? By one-man tragedy, we mean there is mostly the story of the protagonist and his degradation, mostly, because in Christopher Marlowe, in Tamburlaine, in Edward II, or the Jew of Malta, in all of these we see that how this the protagonist, the male protagonist, is mostly laden with such such lust for power and wealth and those kinds of things, and that kind of becomes his way of degradation or his fall mostly. Some of the most important works of Christopher Marlowe's are these, and yeah, you can prepare these, the summaries of these plays, the characters and the plot, most of these things. I think that would be enough for your exam. Now let's get to our second topic, which is the types of dramas during this time. Okay, at that point in time there were basically 7 types of dramas, which we are going to discuss one by one. For you to differentiate these dramas, I'm going to give you examples of Shakespearean plays so that you understand the differences better. Okay, so first one is chronicle plays. Now chronicle plays is mostly the historical plays. It is based on historical events, historical characters. For example, Shakespeare's King Lear, okay, which is based on the story of King Lear, who was an English king. Okay, now the chronicle plays basically show the strong national spirit during the Elizabethan age, and that was their aim. Okay, the chronicle or the historical plays. Okay, these are also called the historical plays of Shakespeare. Okay, and other works like Gorboduc was also a chronicle play. In fact, 10 out of 37 plays of Shakespeare are actually chronicle plays. Second type of play that we have is domestic play. Now these kind of transformed into kitchen sink drama, I guess, in the American literature. So these kind of dramas talk about the the daily life or the domestic life of of any household. For example, they talk about the scenes from the lives of husband and wife, the kind of things they share. Works like Grammar Girton Needles and The Taming of the Shrew are the examples of domestic drama. Now the third type of play is court comedies. Now court comedies is totally opposite of domestic drama. Okay, court comedies means kind of elaborate type of dialogues. Okay, something that is going on in a court, and you cannot be informal in a court. And Shakespeare wrote Love's Labour's Lost, which is a court comedy, and also Two Gentlemen of Verona is also a court comedy. And even though Shakespeare wrote really amazing court comedies, it was popularized by Thomas Lyle, the university wit. Now the fourth type of drama is romantic comedy or romantic tragedy. Okay, the most classic example is Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Okay, and even though Shakespeare has written the most amazing romantic comedies and romantic tragedies, this type of dramas were the result of the experiments done by Peele Green and Christopher Marlowe. The romantic comedies and romantic tragedies are the most finished and polished type of drama, like Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, or like any tragedy of Shakespeare is kind of considered to be the most amazing, the most finest of work. If we set aside comedies, tragedies are one of the most polished. The language is polished, and it's very refined. Fifth kind of play that was prevalent at that point in time was the classical plays, but these were not for everyone. For example, these were mostly, like 99.9% of the time, modeled on Seneca, and that's why they were confined to a very limited number of people, because you need to be educated, kind of belong to the high class, or I mean, if you belong to the high class, then only you can be educated. So those are the kinds of things. Classical plays were not for everybody. Okay, the sixth type of drama is the melodrama, which I don't think so I need to explain a lot. It's mostly about striking incidents and events happening, and it was less and less about the plot or the character, or like the kind of things making sense. It was mostly about just full entertainment, saath nibhana sathiya kind of thing. you just watch it for entertainment and you don't really put a lot of logic into it. Okay, now the seventh and one of the most important type of drama prevalent at this point in time was the tragedy of blood. Now tragedy of blood is mostly the revenge tragedy. Okay, it has kind of melodrama, you know, a lot of violence and all those kind of things, but the one most important condition was that it has to have a revenge trope. Okay, now revenge trope means there has to have some kind of story which involves a revenge, and that drives the plot of the drama. Okay, and Shakespeare wrote Macbeth and Hamlet, which are the prime examples of revenge tragedy. And yeah, with this we complete the 7 types of drama of the Elizabethan age, and I think now you will have a good idea of what type of situation was there when Shakespeare was about to write the most amazing of his work. And in the next video I am going to talk about Shakespeare, and I am planning to make a full-fledged video on Shakespeare, a kind of PPT presentation and everything, where you won't have to prepare anything else from outside regarding Shakespeare. So yeah, stay tuned for that. So yeah, that is pretty much it for today, and I will continue William J. Long now till I will just till your exam. I am just trying to figure it out a little bit, so yeah, just bear with me a little bit, and yeah, let me know what kind of content you want to see on this video and what are the problems you are facing during your preparation. Also, if you are watching this video till here, then please like this video, because I know a lot of you just leave it after 2-3 minutes. So yeah, if you are here, then congratulations. Okay, and yeah, I'll meet you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.